What is up, everybody? Solomon here. Super excited to be with Genfinity for another Algo show. We have with us here Joseph from Pera Wallet. There have been a lot of initiatives in the past month. You and I were just talking about this before I hit the record button. It's always hard to keep up with stuff. From Liquid Auth to payments partnerships to Buenos Aires and Algoland right now to post quantum. That being said, we're going to get into a little bit of all of this. Joseph, how is it going? I'm sure you're busy ramping down the year, and thanks for coming back again.
Hey, thanks for having us on. Everything's going very well. We really trying to close out a lot of key initiatives that we had for 2025. So you see, even November and going into December, we're going to have a lot of announcements moving forward, a lot of big feature requests, a lot of key integrations that we're looking for, and even to like the Algorand, they're looking to solidify on the roadmap that we had out, get the King safety paper out, and talk about the entire sustainability of the chain.
Let's start with what I think is really interesting. And I remember interviewing John Woods while he was still there as CTO, and he mentioned Liquid Auth and kind of the solution it solved to decentralize connectivity, not only for Web3 but for Web2, and really kind of battling some of these centralized systems that exist in this space. This went live on November 12th. Talk about what this announcement means, not only for Algorand but for the entire kind of I'll say like the entire way that we kind of use the internet right now, I guess,
Yeah. So this whole thing came about when Wallet Connect, they're a very centralized service, and essentially they have the ability to block connections in crypto. And if we're looking at a decentralized system, having such a crucial centralized part of the system can really like make things difficult for certain users. Like for example, when Russia invaded Crimea and Ukraine the second time, they were able to disable people in those IP regions from signing transactions. So being true to the ethos of Web3 and decentralization, figure there's probably a better way to do this where there's no centralized custodian or middleman as part of it. And what's interesting about Liquid Auth in general is we kind of went backwards from the normal crypto model. So usually it's like you develop something and then you hope that Web2 adopts it. For this, we actually did the opposite. We used the FIDO2 auth system, which is familiar with passkeys, and we basically took those existing Web2 standards and turned that into a crypto product. So that's where like the really interesting part for me is that on day one we were immediately interoperable with any website that supports those passkey type logins that use the FIDO2 auth. So like GitHub, Twitter, any Facebook, any site like that, you can set up passkeys, and all you have to do is just go around this. Most phones have, whether it's Apple or Google, they have their own one. You just have to choose another option, and then you can select Pera as an option. So this is a way for people to start owning their passkeys and start owning their content. And that's kind of like the main focus of Web3 in general, is just being able to own your content.
I think you bring up a couple of interesting points where, especially in crypto, and I guess I'll start with kind of through the crypto lens here. I think John Woods did a really good job describing it. The first time that I heard about Liquid Auth was probably maybe a year, a little bit more than that. And he talked about like, okay, in crypto, blockchain, distributed ledger, everybody's building all this really cool decentralized stuff. But to use some of it, he's like, it's almost like if there were a highway and there's all these off ramps. But, imagine a tunnel, and the tunnel to get from this really cool decentralized thing to the next really cool decentralized thing is like through a very centralized server that has potential access restrictions and all sorts of stuff. And it's like, all right, we need to get away from that and really put the power in the hands of the people and allow these systems to be as open, democratized, and decentralized as possible. But in that vein, I kind of want to ask you, because I think this is maybe the more interesting point here. And you talked about kind of reverse engineering this from the very Web2 standpoint. And I think that we need to see much more of that in crypto for adoption. I remember a speech from, I think Steve Jobs was the guy that was talking about, hey, how hard it is to basically engineer the iPhone. And we kind of need to be thinking that way for crypto adoption. So how important do you think that is? And it's I guess more just about the recognition that this exists for people to use rather than explaining how to use it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what's great about the way that we did it is it's not specific to Algorand, it's specific to the Web2 authentication standards. So this is something that's not exclusive to Algorand. It's completely chain agnostic. So if anybody on Hedera, XRP, Ethereum, Solana wanted to add this to their wallets, like we have developed this type of standard for others to follow. So that way, as time goes on, these passkeys can become interoperable with, seed phrases that you can share across devices. So that's mainly like what we're looking to do with this entire thing, is show that there is a new way to build, and the way to build is to work with Web2, not to work against it.
I think it's also interesting because for me, it's always kind of interesting to see what's trending in crypto, because crypto is a very, what have you done for me? Not even lately, but like within the past day. And like we've seen a huge resurgence on, at least a little bit more excitement around privacy initiatives, which I think is huge, because like this is kind of in that same vein. Privacy and decentralization, while they may not be the most sexy thing for crypto retail, they are extremely important for kind of the future of humanity and kind of society as a whole. All right, I'm going to move from Liquid Auth, and definitely want to mention you guys can go try Liquid Auth. Go to liquidauth.com. You could scan. It also is going to direct you right into the Pera app, parawallet.app. And I had a chance to try out Pera Wallet quite a bit as Algoland ramped up, and it's just super easy to use, by the way. Every dApp that I accessed in the Algorand ecosystem was like really well put together, really easy to onboard into. And so a huge shout out to you guys. But where do you want to go next, Joseph? Because I know that you guys have a lot of stuff from the ecosystem standpoint right now. Why don't we move to payments maybe? I think that there's been a couple of really big payments announcements recently. One even, I think, in the past day here. I think it's this one. But yeah, talk about some of the payment stuff that we've seen here and surrounding stablecoins and just network as a whole.
Yeah, so I mean, this goes broader to the more of the Algorand Foundation, but like the main focus right now is inflows and outflows into the ecosystem, because this is where we feel like, the most friction in Web3 is. And especially too, there's some like crypto itself, it's so scattered. There's so much fragmented liquidity everywhere. So being able to consolidate like buckets of liquidity, get more ways for people to be able to get algo on chain or off chain. These are the things that will help drive future integrations and future products. So we partnered with, I think it was Coinify for USDC payments. Last month, we partnered with Allbridge, which allows for USDC payments on chain. We just announced a partnership with Noah, which will allow for inflows and outflows of USDC. What they do. This one, maybe we go a little more in depth on this one, because
Sure.
I personally think this one's super cool. But this one allows for people to basically create bank accounts, and from there, you deposit to your bank account with your routing number, and then that money gets put into your deposit wallet on chain as USDC. So from here, you can just set up a bank account and have your direct deposit go right to this, and then you see it as USDC in your wallet. You can do things like have direct deposits get sent right to the bank account. If you're looking at remittances or cross-border payments, you can have your family set up an account and send money right to their bank account. What's great is it will take whatever crypto wallet address that you have linked to that bank account, and will deposit it as USDC in your wallet. And you could do outflows as well. So if you want to send USDC to your bank account, you can do to pay some bills, you can do that as well. So this is a really, really cool feature that really takes the on-off ramp experience with crypto and takes out the middlemen like Coinbase and all those other ones, as you could just have your direct bank account, be able to put your money in. And, for those that, are using the Pera card too, you can use this as your bank account now. You can use Noah to get your money in, and then you can use your debit card in order to spend the money out. And this is one of the most seamless crypto experiences. And for payments in general, this really simplifies the process down to just like really two key steps, which is setting up the bank account and setting up your card. And you could spend crypto whenever you want to do it, and while taking advantage of things like the yield on folks finance or any other programs in crypto that are generating yield for you.
I think it's really interesting because regardless of where crypto is at right now, and I talk about this so many times in so many of these videos I've done recently, it's wild just how much more there is in blockchain and distributed ledger for users, and really how like embedded it's becoming into kind of the traditional system, which I guess is like the more important part. And even as recent as a couple of weeks ago, we're starting to see the first like legit banks enabling buying and selling of digital assets right from within your bank account. You look at something like this, and it's abstracting away other areas of kind of, centralization where you can just onboard right into your bank account. I think it's going to be, a totally different landscape here in a couple of years. It's just actually like wild to see, because this is like the amount of announcements that come out on a daily basis for like real world adoption are absolutely kind of ridiculous at this point in time. I think one thing of note too that I think is really cool, and I guess just broadly from an outsider looking into the Algorand ecosystem, I'll give a shout out to the Alpha Arcade crew, because those guys are absolutely just destroying it. And I know that stuff's going multi-chain soon as well. But I mean, what else do you think as far as I mean, integrations like this are just so big to be able to onboard people into the ecosystem. But from a payment standpoint, what else are you kind of excited about within the ecosystem right now?
So just like what we're doing at Pera is we have a lot of new ways to on-ramp USDC that has become available in the ecosystem. And like one of the things right now is like we currently can't sell algo to US residents. So we're working on ways to add in more inflows. So we're doing two things. We're looking to integrate Allbridge, which will allow for people to buy USDC with their credit card and allow people to be able to just go in, pay, get USDC, and they could also bridge it from other chains. In addition to that, we're also adding ExoSwap by Exodus. And this is another feature that allows people to basically do cross-chain swaps. So if a user's coming in from Bitcoin and they want to get some Algorand or USDC, it will allow for that. It will also allow for cross transfer of stablecoins. So if you're holding USDC on Solana or Ethereum, you can swap that easily for USDC on Algorand. It basically creates like a pseudo CCTP type of structure that which is one of the main things that we see is missing in general. But overall, like, going into next year, our main focus is trying to make the process of getting Algorand or USDC as easy as possible, and being able to get rid of Algo or USDC as easy as possible as well. Because, just looking at the data too, about like 20% of our users transact on a monthly basis. That means a lot of people are coming into the ecosystem holding, they're probably, they probably have a few coins that they're looking at every month or so to see how their performance is doing. So the more that we could cater to the people that are passively using the network and make them more active, it will stimulate more flywheel across the effects. And the more that we can kind of point people at the things that we want, that we think that they're interested in, and what they can do, the better we feel like our engagement rate can pick up, and also the network effect for the entire ecosystem. Because we do want them to come into Algorand and then take that next step and start using dApps, start staking, start spending USDC with their card, things like that. So that's really our main focus.
Yeah, and I know there's, you mentioned the United States and like the ability to kind of engage in this area, and I know that you guys, at least from, there's like big moves into the U.S. for the Algorand ecosystem as well, starting next year. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that that's going to enable a lot of, I would guess, more recognition in the U.S. Certainly. I think it's like Washington D.C., right?
I'm not like super involved with those conversations. I
Okay.
do know that they're getting close to the US move, which I think is really exciting, especially for the way that crypto is kind of really starting to take shape in the United States. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be great, especially to start establishing, because USDC seems to be like the primary stablecoin, especially for Algorand. And the more that we can like tie our roots into the American infrastructure and everything that's being built here, especially too with having inputs on things like the Genius Act, the Clarity Act, and other future legislation that will come around to crypto. Having the entity in the United States will give us a lot more oomph, we feel, in these discussions. And also, if there is sort of a ban around U.S. coins, Algorand is included in discussion, because we were founded in MIT in Boston, so I was a founder. So
I know that also post quantum, there's been a lot of kind of adoption regarding that with Falcon, which are the digital signature schemes. And I just saw, I think this was like over the past day or so, the selection into NIST, which is National Institute of Standards and Tech. I don't know how much within post quantum you can get into the weeds with here, but I think it's at least worth kind of talking about if you have any knowledge on that.
yeah, so I'm actually like a little bit of a quantum nerd, so I do know a lot about this. So right now, a lot of the it's not even just crypto; it's traditional finance as well. They use elliptical curve cryptography, which is currently not quantum proof. So things like your, signing a transaction on chain, some chain histories. There's just so much elliptical curve cryptography that's used. ECC. I'm just going to say that for short moving forward, but it's used overall. So we use Falcon, which is a type of lattice cryptography, and that is quantum proof. So right now we currently have our chain history. I think this was like 2 or 3 years ago that
Yeah.
we had this update. So basically I think it's 256 blocks, something like that. There's a there's a state proof transaction that's signed. And what it does is basically it encrypts that with the Falcon, and it saves that chain history for those last 256 blocks. So, but overall, we have recently created quantum accounts and quantum resistant transactions. So the only thing that's left on Algorand to quantum proof is our verifiably random function that's used to power our consensus. This currently is not quantum proof, and it's arguably the most important thing to quantum proof. But knowing that we have like 3 of the 4 core areas that are already quantum proof really puts us ahead of a lot of the other players in the field. And it really, starts leading the conversation as we get closer and closer to quantum, because some estimates have things, starting to collapse in 2028. Think about it. We're almost in 2026. It's less than 2 years from now. So being able to be this far ahead at this point in time with this, this doomsday clock kind of looking like towards us, I think it could really give Algorand a voice and a space and be a thought leader in, how to quantum proof, financial systems, not just crypto systems.
Yeah, I think we also saw, what was it, Vitalik, over the past couple of days, saying that quantum may break uh, Bitcoin and Ethereum by 2028. And it's like, okay, well, what are we doing about it? And I really do feel like, for some of these networks and ecosystems, certainly like Algorand, as we're mentioning right now, that have done kind of the pre-work in preparing for quantum, are obviously probably going to be better served than the ones that are like, starting 6 months before like quantum computing is a threat. And I'm sure that there's a lot of ecosystems doing a lot, but it's really kind of interesting to hear that a lot of that stuff is already live and in action on Algorand. And the only thing like left, as you mentioned, is like VRF. So, I mean, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, from I guess from just a geeky standpoint, as you mentioned, you're like a kind of a post quantum guy. How real do you think that threat is, just in broad strokes, like to crypto and traditional systems?
I think once we could start getting post quantum computers going, they're so exponentially better than what we're currently used to, because they could essentially have 2 states at once.
Sure.
As that compounds, it just becomes so much more efficient than what we're used to. And so much of today's cryptography is based on kind of brute forcing, where it'll take the person millions of years before they can finally crack it, just because the odds are so low. But the quantum breaks that type of mentality that comes with it. So I think it'll probably be very malicious at first, and luckily I do think that there are bigger targets out there than most crypto chains. But I do think the threat is real, and I don't know if I think 2028 might be a little too optimistic personally, but I do think within probably the next 10 years we will see quantum threats coming.
Yeah, I think I remember doing a report on quantum computing, and oh my gosh, I'm gonna date myself a little bit here, but I went to school a little bit later. I would say like 2014 or 2015, so like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember back then, it was like, if you looked up a definition of what quantum computing was, you couldn't even get a definition of what it was, like definitively.
Yeah.
But I remember that was the best explanation for me, and the way that I understood it was like, okay, normal computing, traditional computing, things either exist in the 0 state or the 1 state. With quantum computing, you essentially can get something that exists in both states and gives you the correct answer, or probably even neither state. And there's all sorts of other different things you could, wrap your brain around. So I want to move towards X402, because I've been seeing this quite a bit recently. What is X402 for people that aren't aware outside of crypto? What does that integration look like, and why is it important?
So I'm not 100% it's the level of quantum nerd, but I believe it's a standard that's related to Coinbase, and what they're looking to do is kind of have a unified standard across all these chains for how agentic commerce is supposed to work. I know that in relation to Algorand, um, what they did was they created a demo with an AI agent to show how agent to agent transfers and agent to agent payments can work. And with this, they were able to show it off to Google, which allowed us to get into their initiative to advance X402.
Awesome. What else do we got here? What are you looking forward to towards the end of the year? I know that everybody is, well, I guess one thing to kind of note is that I see like a lot of the Algorand team kind of at Dev Connect right now. A lot of people in Buenos Aires and rocking kind of the Algoland. I'm seeing like different like games, like arcade games people are playing, and I'm like, man, my head always goes towards merch and crypto. So I'm like, I want some of that merch. But what's going on in Buenos Aires with Dev Connect? And yeah.
Yeah, so they set up a nice little. It's basically a whole thing. It basically took the Algoland campaign and made it in real life, which is really cool. And what's nice too is we added some new on-chain elements. So, for example, if you check out the session down there, you could sign up and you get an Algorand wallet created for you that has some coins in it. And in addition to that, we took our spin game and made a new experimental version of it. So essentially, you could go out there in real life, press a button, and then you can win the chance of a prize. I think they have a chess set and a really fancy dinner as two of the main prizes for this. And it's really cool because now not only these events are they visually and aesthetically pleasing, but we're adding more crypto into them as well. So if you're a brand new person and you never used crypto before, we give you those ways to actually try and experience it, and you realize that when you actually play with it, that it's not as difficult as you thought it was. I was actually just at a React summit on Tuesday, and I was talking to a bunch of people that never used crypto, never really heard of it outside of Bitcoin, but they don't know what Bitcoin does. And it was really interesting hearing those perspectives. And there's still so much that the general populace needs to know about crypto, and these types of events and allowing people to use crypto hands-on, I feel are the ways to help bridge that knowledge gap that's currently exists and allow people to realize crypto is not as intimidating as I originally thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's only getting better. I think that, even, I even probably go back to our first interview with you and Pera Wallet, and there's been so many different things that have came to the network. And I think, so I did an interview a couple of days ago, at different ecosystem, but kind of in the similar vein here. And he was mentioning, he's like, I go and get my hair cut, and my barber's like, how do I get involved with blockchain and distributed ledger? It's very, it still seems confusing and intimidating. And the guy brought up a good point. He's like, look, when all of this stuff shakes out, there's going to obviously be a lot of people that are on board. But at the end of the day, what's going to probably end up happening is most people probably won't notice that they're using crypto and blockchain in the future. Things are just going to be cheaper. They're going to be faster. They're going to have more immersive experiences. And I know that we're a little bit of a ways away from that. But as you mentioned, when you go to these physical events, and I'm sure that you probably see this as well, like you really do get more networking and I would say like actual work done for blockchain adoption in like a few days than you probably could do in like 4 months online. Like the ability to actually reach out and like people to have that light bulb moment go off is just that much more streamlined.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you on both points, especially the abstraction from the blockchain. I do think especially with the NOAA integration and cards, like we could essentially create an app where you don't even, it just shows dollars. You don't know what's USDC, and it just works the way that you would expect it to, like using Venmo, using PayPal, any of those types of payment apps. So yeah, I completely agree with you on both points, especially too about networking, allowing people to try it hands on. It's like, it's like crypto. Okay, what is crypto and how do I use it? How does it benefit me? And
well, I bring up, the example too of like, and I don't think PyCon, which sucks. I don't think it's in my neck of the woods this upcoming year in 2026, but for the prior 2 years, it has been. And I remember in 2024 going down there and talking to the developer group out of Algorand. And going back in 2025, and some of the same people were there, and I was like, hey, have you had a difference in experience? And they're like, it's like night and day. Because I think that, especially, we take for granted sometimes that we see all the blockchain adoption firsthand and crypto adoption and Web3 stuff because we're literally looking at it every single day. So we know exactly what's happening. But people in the traditional world that are going to these events like PyCon, which is, the big Python summit for coding, and you've got like Bloomberg and Meta and all these traditional entities. And for people that aren't aware, I guess there's some context here. Python is like used a lot in machine to machine learning. It's used a lot in financial data scrubbing, certainly in AI. So that whole conference is that you really have to like build trust out with these individuals, the traditional entities. So when I asked this year, what was the experience like, to the dev group at Algorand, they're like, it's been night and day. People are coming up. They're like watching through the seminar, because I think there was a couple of speeches. They're trying some stuff out. Their contact information is being swapped. And as an additional point of context there, you guys were the only blockchain group at PyCon for 2 years in a row, which I thought was crazy because it's literally an entire coding language.
Yeah. Well, that goes like what we talked about Liquid Auth earlier and how we adopted those traditional Web 2 standards. Like we kind of did the same thing with our smart contract language. We made it so that way you can natively write smart contracts in Python, JavaScript, and TypeScript, which are like the most popular coding languages in the world. So that allows us to be able to go to these conferences with developers that are doing Python or TypeScript and be the only blockchain there, because we're the only blockchain that really supports them to the level that they're expecting. And it really allows those friction areas that you see with crypto. We're not trying to really fight the wave anymore. We're trying to kind of ride with it. And it just gives us these sort of competitive advantages over chains that's a lot more complicated to develop smart contracts on.
Well, I want to ask, as we, my boilerplate question here as we ramp down, and I guess I'll play this Liquid Auth video because I forgot to while I asked you this last question here. But what are you most excited about for, the end of the year and moving into next year? And let me make sure I full screen this before I do, because it's going to turn volume on. So, but what are you excited about for through the end of the year and into next year, Joseph? And thank you again for joining today.
Yeah, of course. So a few things that we're excited for is just few key feature releases that we're looking forward to. The ExoSwap Allbridge integration into our on-ramp is one of them. I really feel like this is going to help a lot of people out, especially in the United States. We're also looking to get out our multi-sig wallets. This has been a long feature request that the community has been asking us for. Playing around with it and trying to design the UX, I realize how difficult it is to make multi-sigs in the ecosystem outside of Algorand. So really hoping that this experience is one that our users enjoy, and hopefully it's one of the best UXs for a multi-sig that they've ever had. And in addition to that, I'm really just looking forward to the advancements of crypto in general. I mean, seeing the integrations into fintech and seeing that bridge happen, the more that we can turn Pera into a hybrid of a banking app and a finance app, I really feel like that is the sweet spot for crypto in general and for wallets. So having all these new toys to play with, for lack of better words, really excite me, and it just kind of allows for us to, foray into, where the market is demanding us and be able to keep up with all the new trends and, just trying to make Pera one of the best wallets in crypto in general.
So I think you bring up a really interesting point as we close out here. And again, it'll be really awesome to kind of see you guys roll out multi-sig capabilities. You referenced Pera a couple of times there, not as a wallet, but as an app. And I think that is really the way that, talking about an account or talking about an app, because people out there, the 99%, I know. So like, I'm rambling now. People say that like 15% of people in the US are crypto users. I think that number is like wrong. I don't care about some random guy that bought Dogecoin 4 years ago and like hasn't used, I'm thinking everyday crypto users. It's probably still less than 1% of Americans. So when you think about that, but you think about how many people have a cell phone, what are people used to? People are used to referring to things as an account or referring to apps that they use. Like that's all that a crypto wallet essentially is. But it's even so much more, because it really is just an app. It's just an account. You can do lots of things in all of your apps and in all of your accounts. So finance is just one aspect of this. So that I think is really interesting. And I'll give you guys another shout out, because as I was doing the Algoland stuff, I did feel more like I was using an app than I was using a wallet. You know what I mean? Like I felt like a wallet was kind of a byproduct of it. Like, yes, I can do all the financial stuff in it, but I can actually engage with things
Yeah.
within an ecosystem because it's an application. It's an account.
Yeah. And that's like, just in general, the more that we can, and that's the beauty of crypto in general. Like, there's lending protocols on Algorand. Like if we ever want to incorporate a lending protocol, we could just call on the smart contracts. The user doesn't have to go to that website, which does the same exact thing. And that interoperability that crypto brings allows it to feel more like an app. And you don't have to go or find all these like, different websites, like most people swap in the app because they don't really know how to go out there, find a DEX and do the manual swap. So it's a lot easier to just do it straight through the app. So the more that we can abstract a lot of the blockchain experience and just make it feel like it's just a more native Web2 experience, I think that's going to help reduce down those barriers that we're talking about too. And when people do try crypto for the first time, it's just not as confusing as they thought it would be.
I think too, in the vein, and I'll close this down here. But I do think it's interesting, like from the technology standpoint. I think when you look at something like Liquid Auth, and essentially like reverse engineering Web2 passkeys into a very decentralized, like account driven access point. I think that is what we need for a future where gaming has crypto and blockchain integrated and all the stuff that we kind of do normally, because at the end of the day, it's going to be on me.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through like another point of like red tape upon red tape upon red tape. Like if I play a game, I just want to play a game and I want it to be my account when I play that game and I want to reap the benefits and everything else. So I just think it's so interesting that, I'll do some of these interviews sometimes and I feel like stuff that I talk about with some of the builders that build it is just very early. And I think of like Liquid Auth as being very early, where it's exactly what we need to get. And I guarantee you, we will see a lot more clones coming out in the near future, but you guys have locked it in. So like, I think it's just about getting the knowledge out there. Hopefully this video helps to do that a little bit and kind of going from there. I'm excited to see how it's used.
Yeah, and even too, like it'll be some product for people who want it, which is like where I do agree with you that I believe it is a little early. But if there's something in the future where let's say like one password goes down or something like that, then the need for decentralized passkeys, like it sucks in a way, but you kind of need something bad to happen before people realize the benefits of decentralized systems sometimes. But at least we have it available and we have a working prototype. So if any other wallets or anybody else in the ecosystem wants to incorporate this, or if anybody really values owning their passkeys and the sovereignty that comes with crypto, like we're here for you. And this is the types of early adopters that we're looking for.
I think it'll be interesting to watch too. And I know that from Pera, when I interviewed Mark like a couple of months ago, and it was Lehman Baird, Mark, and then Brandon, so a guy from IOHK and Lace Wallet, and they were talking about DREC integration too. And I know that it was from the Roca standpoint, and I probably mispronounced Roca, but I think that's going to be interesting because I think like when we see live implementations of that, like, and I know that you haven't said definitively with Pera if that's coming or not, DREC. Go ahead. Sorry.
We need multi-sig first. So once we get multi-sig in, we can do that.
So, but what I guess the point where I was trying to take it was, it'll be interesting for me to watch, like, okay, how does something like Liquid Auth tie into DREC? Because there's a lot of synergy there where like, okay, now I have a decentralized way to access applications essentially tied to my account, but my account is essentially decentralized where I don't have to like worry about a piece of paper that I have under my bed burning because of DREC. Like, I just feel like that's the future we're heading towards, is like being able to recover things instantaneously and interact with things in a decentralized way. And it'll be interesting. So,
yeah, well, the main fundamental aspect of Liquid Auth is a peer-to-peer connection. So that peer-to-peer connection can be extrapolated to other use cases. Like for example, you can use it to send encrypted messaging. You could do it to have sort of peer-to-peer trades. So there's a lot more that we can build off of this type of connection and using this the P2P. And we're really excited. I mean, it's a matter of understanding where the use cases are and where we want to concentrate, but it's not really like an end to something. It's more of like a foundation to a beginning of more even cooler features.
100%. No, it's really cool. And well, Joseph, I know we just went through kind of a ton of stuff here, and I'm sure that this won't be the last time that we talk, but it might be this year. So if it is the last time that we talk this year, I want to wish you a happy holidays. And same thing with whether it be Thanksgiving if you celebrate or over the Christmas holiday. Definitely happy holidays to you and the entire Pera team and the Algorand Foundation. Hopefully we can get you on one more time and do maybe a bigger space in December, kind of like an all hands for the ecosystem would be awesome. That being said, thanks for going over all this today, and looking forward to the next one. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Same with you. Happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate, and happy holidays. And I look forward to being on again before the end of the year. So let's hope that happens.
Awesome.